Hello and welcome to Truth is Freedom. I'm Dennis Cummins, the pastor of Experience Church. I'm so glad that you're a part of what we're doing today. Today we're going to be investigating some of the tyranny that's going on by the progressive left. I've got our special guest, Rick Slaughter. He is a local community member, a part of our church, and it's crazy to see what's happening. You know, January 6th, not a lot of people understand what's going on. You know, just good, God-fearing people that love their country and love what the country stands for, loves the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, showed up and just to support President Trump. This is not about what you think about President Trump. This is about what you think about freedoms and due process and the justice system. And so Rick Slaughter had quite a experience as he was there on January 6th. And there is a court case. He cannot go into any of those details, obviously, because it's still in process. But I want to welcome today Rick Slaughter. Thank you so much, Rick, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Local community member of Ording, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've worked down there with the school system. Tell me a little bit about that background.
Sure. My wife and I moved with my son, Caden, down to Ording 2010. Mm-hmm. We've been there 12 years. We had a Bible study out of our house, and it grew quite large, very fruitful. And the thing that we were focused on when we had prayed was, you know, what will our focus be? What is our mission? What is our local mission? And it was very apparent that it was the youth. So our group had connected with a gal who had a youth center that she needed people. We needed a building. So it was a great match. So that was in 2014, almost 10 years ago. So I've been serving the youth of the community since then. And my wife and I, in 2017, we took over ownership of the nonprofit. And so I'm the board president, now the acting program director, which is a passion of mine. And since then, you know, I got into the school board. I was elected. I was very bold in what I believed. In fact, the last sentence of what I put in the voters pamphlet was, I didn't believe in wasting anyone's time wondering where I stood, because I respect people and their time. And I don't want to just put a feel-good statement. I wanted to let people know what I stood for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I worked down there at an office next door to the youth center. And we did a lot of community events, a lot of fundraising. Just practicing servant leadership, you know, not out there for the pat on the back or the glory, just doing what we knew that we were called to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're not like teaching people how to make bombs and
no, very much not so.
Insanity stuff, right? So, you know, you've got a heart for the community, a heart for the young people coming up, investing in the community.
Oh, yeah.
What led you to go to January 6th to DC?
Two things. One, I wanted to see my president speak. I'd never been to a rally. I heard that they were always a lot bigger than the cameras showed on TV.
Yeah.
From people who have gone. And two, it was a trip with my son. I wanted to show him what DC looked like. I'd never been there. We went to the Lincoln Memorial. We went to, you know, I explained what the Federal Reserve was because I've been in banking so long. I spent a little extra time on that one.
Sure.
And we had a really fun trip, you know, leading up to the events on January 6th. And I'm not going to hide behind the fact that, you know, we were there to question election integrity. Like,
right.
I didn't believe, you know, what I was being told, the overnight surprise that we got and some of the other things on non-mainstream media, you know, led me to say, you know, I want to go. I want to go. And to be around that many like-minded people, it was great. There was just an ocean as far as you could see of people. And they were some of the nicest people. You'd bump into somebody, pardon me, you know, and people sharing granola bars and bottles of water and talking to people about vitamins and God. And it was a really, really great day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, being there January 6th, it's crazy. And by the way, I believe the integrity of the election was violated.
Yeah.
As well. There's just too many. A lot of people are coincidence theorists. They just believe it's all coincidence. Oh, it's just coincidence. There's nothing foul play. And that's where we have to be critical thinkers and understand what's at stake for the progressive left. And they've gotten so far that they can't risk it. And I believe what they're trying to do is make examples out of people to prevent people from being bold, being brave, and standing And so when I've seen the events, and especially when Tucker Carlson released the video, and
totally contradicts what we were told.
Absolutely, the narrative, the progressive left narrative, and then the reality of the video, the reality of the cops saying, "Hey, come on in." Now, I'm not asking you to violate anything according to your court process and all that, but what can you share?
Well, without, portraying myself as a victim, because that has been used against people in court, because I'm just here to share the facts, right? I can share that it was not what the media is saying, right? The story. Many people didn't know where they were allowed and where they weren't allowed, the timelines of when there were signs and barricades and when there weren't, and who, the thing is, if everybody's being treated the same, it's just not, it's not fair. And so they say anybody who went there that day, they came to burn down the city.
Right.
And we just know that's simply not true. I lost my son that day, for a very long time. I can share that. And I can tell you that me personally,
you got separated.
Oh, very, very quickly. Yeah. Once we got up to where there was a good amount of people in the crowd, I went to check something out. I told him, stay right here. And he didn't.
Now, he wasn't like 6 years old, right?
He's 18.
Yeah, he's 18. So he's not just a young child.
Yeah. And we got separated for 4 hours. Yeah.
So, and you didn't violate or break any laws?
I didn't hurt anybody.
Yep.
I didn't break anything, and I never went in the Capitol.
Yep.
But I am on trial for several charges. I think the grand total, if you added them all up, would be over 40 years in prison.
40 years in prison. And I understand that you had a surprise knock at your door.
No, actually, that's the thing. When I got home, the FBI had called me within a week or two of when I came home, and I was sitting in my office in Tacoma, and my phone said FBI, Tacoma, Washington. So I took the call. Because to me, I don't feel like I broke the law or did anything wrong that day or had nothing to hide. So I took the call. I talked to this field agent, and we had a very long conversation because I told him everything that happened that day. And I was never worried or concerned about that. So we had several conversations throughout the 8 or 9 months that I was investigated and followed and tracked and surveilled and all this. And he had called me and wanted me to come in to, look at some videos or pictures and tell him if it was me or not, and this is at the very end of the year. So I had called around. I'm like, is this a good idea? I had previously been approached by somebody who said that they were FBI agents knocking on other people's doors with pictures saying, is this Rick Slaughter? I can't share who that person was, but off camera, you'll find it very ironic and kind of funny on who they went to ask if this was me. But what's weird about that is I told them from day one that I was there. So why do you have to go knock on my neighbor's door or people I go to church with and say, hey, is this Rick Slaughter in this photo? I told them I was there and repeatedly. And so there wasn't a surprise knock on my door. It was that they wanted me to come in. I was actually set to go speak at an engagement. And ironically, I was actually set to speak on courage that day to a networking group at 2 different locations. And so I told the agent, I said, well, I can swing by in between these 2 appointments I have. And he's like, okay. And why don't you bring your son? Okay. And that's when my gut started going, uh-oh, why would they want Caden there too? Yeah. So I brought my son to the Tacoma FBI, office, the federal courthouse over there. I went to go pay for parking, and I look across the street and I see 4 or 5 people over there pacing back and forth. And I'm like, what is the deal? Who are they? And I got a call, and they're like, they knew where I was and they were watching me. They're like, no, come park down here in the parking lot, behind the building. Like, oh, okay, sure. So I go down there, I park there. And then at that point we're placed under arrest. And they said that they had a search warrant for my house. I said, okay. And then I said, do you guys want the garage code? And they said, well, we know that nobody's home because your wife's at work and your kids are at school. Is there anybody else at your house? And I said, no. And so I thought they was going to send a couple people over to my house with a car or something, for whatever was on the search warrant. By the way, the search warrant was for my beanie, my hoodie, and my phone. That's it. Those 3 items. To prove that I was there, even though from the very first day, the first phone call, I said I was there.
Right.
And that's when they raided my house, shut down the street in front of my house. So my neighborhood, I think there's like 500 homes.
A lot of theater.
Oh yeah. So, and it wasn't so much like, I know they have a job to do, right? And maybe they don't know me, but after surveilling me and listening to my phone calls of me praying for people and, serving the community and running school board meetings and stuff with my people, like I didn't think that they would show up with the A team, but they did. My neighbor had counted 28 or 29 agents, and there was this like mini tank looking assault vehicle, and they couldn't even park straight. They had to park at an angle like they were rolling in hot across my driveway, and they come out everything, full battle rattle, AR-15s and, helmets and all this. And again, I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm just stating the facts.
Right.
Okay. We have the video cameras of it. My surveillance cameras, they captured the moment up until they were broken down. They bashed my cameras down and everything. And, it is a little weird because the search warrant was for my beanie, my hoodie, and my phone. But then my gun safe was cut open and broken into, and all my stuff was, rifled through, and in areas where, I think my hoodie was in the washer in the laundry room. My beanie was probably on my dresser, and my phone was left on the kitchen counter. So, they were using a wicker basket to stand up to go into my attic, and, it was a mess.
Right.
And I had neighbors and friends that were standing up front like, what is going on? I mean, you would have thought I was, like a cartel or Osama bin Laden or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for, I think 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, it was several hours, the street was shut down. So they couldn't let anybody pass my house, which is strange to me because if they told me, we know your wife's at work, your kids are at school, and then once they clear the house, why can't my neighbors come home for lunch or leave? And, I don't think it's an accident that, strategically, the only way to exit the neighborhood without having to be very inconvenienced is to go right in front of my house.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to help people understand is there's a lot of theater to help people understand that if you stand for conservative values, if you stand for family values, traditional family values, if you stand for the Constitution, the biblical rights, guess what?
Yeah.
You're a danger to their agenda.
Yeah.
And we're finding it. We saw the pastor that was raided by the FBI and his family on the East Coast. And of course, the case was thrown out. But what about all the drama, all the theater, everything that was done and zero, evidence? There's no accountability anymore. And so, and I'm not speaking on your behalf, I'm speaking on my behalf, but since that's happened, how has your life changed? How have you been impacted? What is going on? Because obviously the court process isn't over, but what is this doing to your life?
Well, first off, if I wasn't rooted in Christ and faith, I don't know if I would be married right now. I don't know if I would be alive right now, because fear can cripple you.
Yeah.
Literally. I don't know how people make it through a crisis without God in their life. I just don't. In fact, my heart aches for people who don't know Jesus and don't have faith, because how do they come out of the shower and go, well, today I'm going to try to find the blessings in life when I'm canceled on social media, attacked virtually through cyber attacks. So seemingly everything was taken from me overnight in the world's eyes, right? Multiple websites and Facebook groups and things that I've been, involved in that were attacked nationwide systematically, like an orchestrated effort. Really, the first day was really crazy. So it was every news agency in the Northwest wanted the story and had the story from the Department of Justice. So somebody at the DOJ must have been like, here's a story, here's a story, here's a story, here's a story. Mm-hmm. And then I had people from Atlanta, Georgia telling me I need to commit suicide because I'm a traitor to the United States and I should deep throat my favorite pistol and pull the trigger and do everyone a favor. I had people, I had threats. I had a business. I was top 1% in the nation 2 years in a row for mortgage lending. And I got fired because of the accusations.
Jeez.
My company was scared that I was going to make them look bad. So they fired me for that.
So you're getting canceled.
For sure. It was
Doxed and canceled.
immediately before ever any evidence is heard. And that's
Yeah.
the part about America that really is sad, is that we live in this day where the headlines, despite knowing and seeing the things that aren't true, that people are still just, oh no, the news said it, you must be that guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I have years of my life and testimony with people that say I'm not the monster they say I am. But it doesn't matter. The news, they said you did that, and you're that person. Without any evidence, without my day in court, without any of that. So there's two big things going on. One is there is no
due process.
It's social condemnation. There's it's social canceling, and then it's a distancing. And I've told people that the remedy to figure out who's your real ride or die in life is to have a crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, legally, through legal channels, I should say, I'm not saying legally, but through legal channels, you've been doxxed because guess what? They put you everywhere. Oh, yeah. Right? So you've been doxxed, you've been canceled, and then you've been labeled. And there's no due process. You know, we say, oh, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. But that's not the case, especially when there's an agenda behind it, when there's a clear agenda behind what they're trying to do. And here's the thing about, House Bill 1333 labeling basically biblical moral people domestic violent extremists. Yeah. This is what Bob Ferguson wants, the Attorney General, which is going to be running for governor. And so basically what you're experiencing is just the foreshadowing of what many more people are going to experience if he gets that through.
For sure. And for people that say, oh, there's no list. I'm one of the biggest things I wanted.
What do you mean there's no list?
If you're like, well, I'm on a list, a domestic, extremist, violent list, a terrorist list. There are people who do not believe that there's a list. Okay. I can tell you without a doubt, there's a list. Okay. Because my paperwork that was left on my kitchen counter, and all this is public, you could actually find these documents and things. My case is being handled by a gentleman from the FBI, from the Office of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Yeah. So I'm already in that arena with them. And then if I travel, go through the airport, whatever, it's a nightmare. And TSA, everybody starts making phone calls. It's a 4 to 5 hour deal. If I get pulled over, it says, approach this person with caution. Do not alert this person that they may be on a terror watch group. Call this 1-800 number and wait for further instruction. That's crazy. I have a lot of friends who are police officers in various areas, and I've worked with a lot of them. Yeah. I've done SWAT training with them. So has my son. And I've called them and talked to them, and they're like, yeah, it's bad. And there was a new gal, God bless her heart. She slipped up at the airport. I think it was in Atlanta. She had just straight told me, like, yeah, you're on like a list. I'm like a no-fly list? And it was like another list. Like, they're going to check you out, and they have to make a lot of phone calls and hold my driver's license. And I had 2 TSA agents when I was flying for my work when I went to Vegas. They escorted me to the bathroom. All my stuff spread out on the ground. And again, I'm not saying I'm a victim of this, because I'm going through this for a reason. And, sometimes things can't be fixed until they're broken, and people see that. And so the impact that this has had on the lives of people that know me, it's waking people up. Yeah. Because they're like, there's no way that you're that monster that they say you are. Right. And honestly, the people that are the most real with me are the students that I serve. They're like, how is this possible? And I'm like, that's a long conversation. And I'm not here to really go through that with you. I'm here to just, bless you, let you have fun and all that. But they know what's going on. And they're like, oh, nothing's going to happen. You're a good guy. I'm like, yeah, thanks. My little one's like, can't you just tell them you're sorry? I'm like, oh, buddy. Yeah.
Sorry for what? Being American. So where do you go from here?
I go to court. And that's where a jury is going to either convict me of these things or not. And what happens to me after that, that's in God's hands. I mean, it's in the hands of the judge, but to me as a believer, my journey of where I'm going in life, this is a part of that. And so, you know what? If I go to prison for my intent, if this jury convicts me and they think that I was there to hurt an officer that day or whatever, Something like that is not going to stop my journey, right? I will speak the truth and I will fight for the rights of people as long as I have a voice. They take my voice, I'll write a letter. They take my right hand, I'll learn to write left-handed. And that's just what it is. I'm so passionate about helping people with the light bulb go off. I mean, this is why I was on the school board, right? I was fighting for the parents who felt like they weren't the primary stakeholder in their child's decision. They didn't like the woke agenda that was creeping up into school. They didn't like how there's board policies like in Puyallup where, if you feel different in gender, you can use a different bathroom. I had parents coming to me who don't have the courage to speak up, who are not articulate with their words, who are very concerned. And why I was so bold with what I said in the voters pamphlet was because I was belly to belly with the parents of the town, because I worked in town. I served in town for 10 years. I'm talking to parents everywhere, sports games. And every time I walk up to them, I ask these questions. Are you for this? I couldn't find anybody that was for all this stuff. Yeah. It was against their beliefs. And if you have a diverse group of students, who are you to teach any indoctrination of anything anyway? Mm-hmm. And so I was very much like, this needs to be outside of the public education system. And so my kids are in private school, but yet I'm a school board director at the public school, primarily because COVID, right? They wouldn't open the schools. We had to find something to do. But now I'm keeping them there because I don't feel it's safe for my kids to go back. Mm-hmm. But what about the parents who can't afford that? Right. They're at the mercy, and they're every day. I talk to people who are like, I'm genuinely concerned about what they're teaching my kids at school because it goes against my values. Why aren't we just sticking to math, reading, writing, science? And the science part bugs me too, but it's they want to get their agenda, and parents are not having it. And you wonder why 5 bonds, across the Washington state in different areas didn't pass. Yep. The parents are speaking up. They're doing it that way because they're not listening to them. Yeah. Yeah, they follow the money, and they're starting to wake up. I think hopefully they're starting to wake up. We'll see. But it's obvious with Target. It's obvious with Bud Light. They don't care about the money anymore. No, they don't listen to the base of the people that they serve. No. It's about what they want. They're deaf. And they're finding out that it's not working. Right. And they use tools of suspicion and dispersion so that way they get that narrative out front. And obviously there's several people on January 6th that are they've had no due process. Right. You're talking about the ones that were in in DC lockdown and all that? Yeah. 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 I'm very fortunate to have been home for dinner that day. And that was confusing. There's some folks across the street from me that were just like, wait, how was the little mini tank thing there? And then you're home for dinner. It's because I don't have a criminal record, and there was no reason to put bail because I run a youth center and I have a business in town, and I was on the school board at the time, so I was an elected official. It's like I'm not going anywhere, But many people were not as fortunate as I am in that regard, and I still at this point like I have to go and take P tests. My house gets a once a month check. They come through and check out my home, and they do you have any guns, and I have to ask permission or request to travel outside of the Western District, so it's like about as close to being as ankle monitored as you can. Mm-hmm. But the folks that were over in DC, once the truth comes out from that they were denied haircuts, to clip their fingernails, they weren't allowed to have a Bible, they weren't allowed to have any visitation, they were put in solitary confinement. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she toured the facility. There's mold on the walls. It was, squalor type prison conditions for people in like a wartime thing. And these are American citizens who have not had their day in court. They haven't gone through, and then they were mentally tortured with, and there's channels on alternate media. You can literally hear from the jailhouse phone what they say. And they were told, if you get the vaccine, you'll be able to have visitation. And then, oh, psych, just kidding. And messing with them. Oh, your court date's this date. Oh, COVID, sorry, we're going to delay it. You know what that does to somebody who's 23 out of 24 hours of the day, there are 4 white walls by themselves. Yep. They're trying to break people. Yeah. So I'm very fortunate to not have been in that situation. I hope nothing happens to go there.
What I want to point out, though, is the hypocrisy of the left, because, we have Seattle, downtown Seattle. We had the Seattle police station that was blocked, doors blocked. Yeah. It was torched, tried to kill police officers, attacking police officers. And who's been charged?
Yeah. You want to see that right in your face, go into a Telegram channel called Antifa Watch. You'll see there was a guy I watched sitting on a park bench.
AntifaWatch.com?
No, it's just on Telegram.
Okay,
there's
on Telegram.
channels, and there's a channel called Antifa Watch.
Got it.
I watched one, I think it was last year. There's a guy sitting on a park bench in Portland. Portland bike officer comes by. He just jumps up, socks the cop right in the face. And he was, I think, given probation.
Yeah.
So yeah, they took over the East Precinct. They took over several blocks and flipped over cars, and I think Portland burned cars down. And that was they were told to do that, with Maxine Waters and these people. You gotta get in their face when they're at a restaurant. I'm like, excuse me, what happened to civility? Like, what happened to? We've lost our way. Right. Get in their face and screaming when they're at dinner with their kids and a family, and that's not how you do it. I fight my battles on my knees. I pray, I consult with people, and I try to be strategic. And another thing in regards to that day, I had a lot to lose.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the frustrating thing, is like, why would I go with this agenda to cause physical harm? Right. I was a hoodie, beanie, my kid. There were people that had, bats and, batons or knee pads and had bicycle helmets and goggles and, bear spray. It's like, okay, these guys came to get rowdy. Right. But if just one person didn't, well, is there two of those people? Is there maybe three people that are good people that got caught up in the crowd? No, they're all domestic terrorists. And so back to that list thing, it's how soon is it going to be until, the Bible verses that get canceled that speak against the LGBTQ agenda say, well, you can preach, but not this verse.
Right.
And if you do, now you're on a list and you're going to be committing a hate crime against this population of people.
Well, Connecticut, they just passed anti-discrimination law against minor attracted adults. Persons.
I have a remedy for those people, but I'm not going to say it out loud.
But it's legalizing pedophilia.
It's crazy.
That's all it is. Yeah. But it's normalizing, and their agenda won't stop. And so, the reason I asked you in is I want people to wake up. I want people to wake up, and because there's still a season that we have a voice, we have the strength. The church has the authority. The Bible says the gates of hell shall not prevail against us. And so that's why we can't secede. We can't give up our authority. We need to stand while we still can. Yeah. Because, in other words, the Christians are going to be the new Jews in Nazi Germany.
If we don't wake up, it's heading there now.
Yeah. And so
losing our rights.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we are on this path. And if we don't wake up, there's too many people sleeping, too many people with the head in the sand, too many people saying, you guys are radicals.
Well, there's too many pastors not speaking like you. And I'm going to say that because it's weak sauce. Okay. We're here just talking like people. I'm just going to tell you it's weak. And there's a book Matt Walsh wrote called Church of Cowards. I urge everyone to read that. If you're the leader and you're on stage and you know that something's not biblical, you don't water it down to appease the people. That's kind of why we got here. Yeah. That's where we are. Yeah. People need to be bold and speak up. I think the two biggest things that we're dealing with right now that are the cause of where we are, one is fear and the other is willingness. My neighbors have fear. There's people who drive by that I've been waving at for 12 years who will not look at me and smile when I'm mowing my lawn right now because they think I'm a monster. I'm a terrorist. And the willingness. How many times are people like, oh, I love that sermon. Are you willing to share it? Oh, I love what you guys said there. Are you willing to share that with someone else? Oh, I totally know what you mean. That's not right. Are you willing to stand up and saying something? Are you willing to do something about it? I don't mean physically, but you can use your voice. You can get out. You can stand up and say, that's a lie. And you know what happens when you do that? 20 other people get behind you and go, what he said. It's like the first person to dance gets them going. The first person in the ocean gets them out swimming. The first person to pray gets people to bow their heads. First person to get up to eat gets everybody in line to eat. Be a leader. Be about that courage. Stand up and say that this isn't right. And watch how many people will follow you. If more pastors would speak on the things that are actually threatening our rights and not being scared to, we got to separate the church and the state. No, when the state steps on the church for what we believe in, that's not okay. Say something about it.
We got to rise up. We got to rise up. I forget who said it, but one man with a backbone strengthens other men's backbones.
100%.
And that's what we're looking for. So, hey man, I really appreciate you being on here, sharing your heart. I know you've got a battle ahead of you, and we're going to continue to pray with you.
Thank you.
And stand with you on that because We need truth and justice. That's what we need.
Amen.
And so thank you guys so much for being a part of today's podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe this out. Also, give me a review on the channel. I don't care if it's a 1-star or 5-star. Just state why, and then we'll know where you come from and what your beliefs are. And that'll help me. So we trust that you're going to have a great day. God bless you. Thank you. Truth is freedom.